We have just a few minutes with Joshua before he has to go to another appointment. But Joshua, talk to me about Adi and his family. When you first showed this film at the Venice and Toronto film festivals, before that, you and your team went through the effort to have Adi and his family relocated from where we see them living here to a safer place at a distance from any threats that might come to them. That was over a year ago. Can you talk about where they are now?
Sure. So actually, the film also came out in Indonesia 1 year ago, and has now screened publicly over 4,000 times in Indonesia. The government of Indonesia, two government bodies, the National Human Rights Commission and the Jakarta Arts Council, stuck their necks out and became the official distributors of the film in Indonesia, something that couldn't have happened with my first film, The Act of Killing, which really opened the way for this process with The Look of Silence. The Look of Silence, at the first screening of The Look of Silence, it was held in Indonesia's largest theater, a venue for 1,500 people. There were billboards placed around Jakarta announcing the screening. Adi came as a surprise guest to both to the screening, but so did 3,000 people. So they put on two screenings so that everyone would be able to see the film. Adi, at each screening, got the most remarkable response. Now, the premiere was on November 10th, which is National Heroes Day in Indonesia, and trending on Twitter in Indonesia and therefore around the world, because Indonesia is the world's largest Twitter-using country, was today we have a new national hero, and his name is Adi Rukun. So there was this tremendous outpouring of support for Adi and for the film from the public that saw the film, from the mainstream media, and that, I think, has been protective for Adi's family. They have not received any threats since the film's come out, although we remain very vigilant. There's a team of 5 people working full-time to make sure the family's safe and doesn't receive, and that if there are threats, they're able to evacuate to Denmark, where I live. They all maintain visas to come to Denmark and relocate there for as long as necessary. We've also raised money for the children to be in much better schools, for a scholarship fund for the kids' university, and for Adi to open a brick-and-mortar optometry shop, something we did in collaboration with the True False Film Festival and then some private foundation support, so that Adi no longer has to go door-to-door selling glasses. Also something we recognize could be hazardous if the reaction were different. So that was all part of a sort of very big effort to make sure they're safe. So far, everything's well. That said, in the last 1 month, there's been a kind of backlash from the military against the national discussion around 1965, where you've seen events, screenings of my film, our film, I should say, screenings of the film, panels about 1965 being canceled, threatened with attack by paramilitary groups working for the military, and so on. So there's a struggle ahead for acknowledgement and for truth, justice, and reconciliation.
So the question was, the speaker was saying that he had difficult parsing his own feelings for this film, and wondered if in your role as a documentary filmmaker, do you think of yourself as a historian?
No, I certainly don't think of myself as a historian. Both The Act of Killing and The Look of Silence are films about the present. They're about the moments that are being filmed. So they're about how the present is haunted by an unresolved past. Again and again in the film we hear, "Let the past be past." But survivors always say it out of fear, and perpetrators always say it as a threat, which means the past isn't past. It's an open wound right there, dividing people, keeping the survivors afraid and empowering the perpetrators to threaten. So in that sense, and this open wound will never heal until people find the courage to stand still and go quiet and look at it and acknowledge not only the atrocities of 1965, but the lives broken by half a century of fear and silence. Whatever truth, justice, and reconciliation may come in the future, perhaps in part as a result of the conversation, the national conversation that my two films has been involved with, that will not bring back the half century of fear lost by Adi's the half century of fear suffered by Adi's parents. In fact, the way Adi convinced me, because it was Adi who told me he wanted to confront the perpetrators, the way and when he first said he wanted to do that, I said, absolutely not, it's too dangerous. Then because there's never before been a film made where survivors confront perpetrators who still hold a monopoly on power. But then my crew reminded me that we were shooting the film after the act of killing was finished editing, but before anyone had seen it. So I was still believed across that region to be close to the most powerful men in the country, some of whom appear in the act of killing. And so we realized that the men Adi wanted to confront would not dare to even detain us, let alone physically attack us, because they still believed I was close to their superiors because no one had seen the film, the act of killing yet. So once we realized it was possible, Adi, we went ahead. But the way Adi really expressed his emotion, expressed why this was so important to him, was by showing me a tape that he'd shot on a little camera I'd given him to use as a kind of notebook. And he played the tape for me and showed me the one scene in The Look of Silence that Adi did shoot, and it's the scene of his father crawling through the house at the end, calling for help. And Adi said when he filmed, his father was confused and lost all day, and they couldn't comfort him, and he felt it was unbearable not helping him. So at some point he started to film, because it was the only way he could be close to his dad and not bear being close to his dad. He sort of used the camera, I think, as a shield, to protect himself emotionally. But when he started filming, he realized that he was documenting the day it becomes too late for his father to heal. Because on that day, his father couldn't remember for the first time anyone in the family. He'd forgotten the son whose murder destroyed his family's life and his own life. But he couldn't forget the fear. And now Adi realized he'll never now be able to work through this fear because he can't remember what happened. He can't heal. And he said, I don't want my children to inherit this same prison of fear that millions of other survivors like my parents will die in, and that I've been living with my whole life. And I think that that's really what the film's about. It's about the prison of fear in the present. What does it do to human beings, to memory, to a family, to our ability to grieve or heal or not heal, to have to live afraid for 50 years? And so I hope you'll feel both empathy and outrage. Not just when you see this film, but when you see any injustice. We must feel outrage and we must feel empathy, because empathy is the beginning of understanding, and we have a duty to try and understand how we human beings hurt one another.
So, Joshua, as final question, you talked about this backlash that has been happening recently against screening of your films. Since your first film, The Act of Killing, that opened up a real conversation in Indonesia about this. Now you're talking about elements of a backlash. But can you talk about the opposite side of it, the people who, despite a backlash, continue to want to talk about this?
Yeah, so right this week, for example, there's been an international people's tribunal in The Hague where human rights activists, artists, filmmakers from across Indonesia, inspired actually by these two films, that's what it says in their mission statement, have gathered thousands and thousands of pages of evidence of the crimes against humanity that took place in 1965 and have brought them before. It's kind of, they call it a people's tribunal. It's a kind of symbolic tribunal, and in that sense it's a kind of truth commission. But the judges and prosecutors are all jurists from the International Criminal Court. That's happening this week. We see the media and the public reporting day in and day out about the need for truth, justice, and reconciliation. Last year we saw The Look of Silence named as Film of the Year across the Indonesian media, which never happens with a documentary, but happened with this one because people couldn't imagine the bravery and the of Adi and the importance of what he's done.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for coming tonight. I hope you get to see more films in the next 6 days. Let's give a hand for Joshua Oppenheimer.
Thank you so much.